ʻagyeeyí yoxatini Shukát ʻu.oo Yagyeeyí Shukát Ḳu.oo Yagyeeyí Ť'aaq'uigwal Shukát Ḳu.oo Wutua'ach Yagyeeyí Ḳaakligéi dat Ḳu'a Q'ualch'is Manhattan Ḳu'a Ikwa'ach Dusai Ya'uk Ḳu'a Tlaik Ḳaakligéi क़u'a Wijinda Hawkuk Tlachchi Yagyeeyí Hilwasa Otiqua Ye awe Kaddu Kadatawa Yutachtatang Data Tinach Sakayati Gwal Hatuasagu Hatuwu Dasa Hatuwu Aya Hilwasa Qoti Gwal Akhua Hasutuasagu Wudisnehi Wutusaku and Qanins Tunik Aya Hatu Yeti Qahataya Yetitsa Ajawe we Qa'id the Shi Khosaku Wasagahtisa we Qatuwu Bunugu Qul Tarqnuk Qoa Qul Qatuwu Ikhtishi Awe Ak Yekhat Wutian we Quyatahai the Seko da Ajawe Yagyeeyí Shukwa Achtuasagu Yatakaktu Aku Gwal neilde ʼatudli.átk qa just Yagyeeyí atawe adat yutukachtu tla'a Tlein tuwu Tlein ade aya yagachtu tlaq ya qa qisakhan qatilla'an aqa awe gwal daghun ade daghun de gachtusatu tlaik dech nasabu dis hat tundatani tu aqa quchte ʼatudli.átk tu tlaik quchte ʼatudli.átk achtuasagu we tlesh ushke at adadawe tiudatan ade awe jikachkinak ye we Ḥaakligéi tunik Qan qa dasa awe adat etutuhihi aqa awe tsu tlaik dech nasdagun ye awe adat yutachotang Yagyeeyí Ajawe Shukát Ḳu.oo Yagyeeyí aya Yata aya Ḳaakligéi Yagyeeyí Gwal Shukwa neilde needasaa tlaika needasaa gwal Yuhan Illutunach aqa idaseku quchte qailshat gwal takat Yuhan tlaik dech nas dachun dus it tundatani tu quchte needasaa enach tlaik dech nas dachun neilde needasaa kagachtu aq gwal dachun dehin gulchish gedenkaya aqu Khosaku yagachyitlaq takat Yuhan Khosaku ituasagu ʼatángi yishagugu yekwati Wooch takat Yuhan Shukwa neilde needasaa quchte needasaa neilde needasaa quchte needasaa neilde needasaa quchte needasaa neilde needasaa quchte needasaa ade awe hinde ya an atjin achtuasuku adat tiu de tan. Ya kui kaya koneyan yanahich ya idat yes katak. Gosh inach sa ti hastu inyeji ne ya idat. Goshidzi ya ekusti achtuasuku yidlaki. We just the cut we yaki at ya yaki ilshingetani ka. Ye awa adadawe yejetune ya uhan ya shukach adi. A joy chosaku and qaninz yitika ya ha yejene. Ka gwallitoasagu ha yukatangi. Dana ya echinach ya kana dani. A atina hayati qaneich. A ka awe kadadug. Ye awe yata. Qanek kadadug ya ach. Tlein. Shakich. Ra awe achtuasagul te kaduhan ade awe yejitune ya kataduku ya chakwati. Ye awe achtundatani ya yedat wasas yetil te kaduhan wasa ya adaneni in. Okay, okay. Jeez.
Kataya.
Ah.
Segu Ginjichuan. Gunishchish Yagi.
Oh, okay. Ah.
Yagi.
Ya yedat again. Okay. Klake yiha you. Okay.
Sagate Koma, you do a sock.
Ah. Nukt Tlein de toasagu uasai. Ye wusai. Kinji. Keshe toasku tlaqaik. Ye tusai. Yake sagu inyan qati. Yaltakatwe. Taqaqu uwu. Gunchishiki. Kek yaki tsuwan qanins yutuasa. Ka naqidach. Kek. Okay. Okay. Any thoughts or questions? Anything on your mind?
How does one download a Tlingit keyboard on their phone?
If it is a Android phone, there used to be something in the Google store called the Chert keyboard. Something has happened, and I don't know if it's available anymore, but I will check.
Okay.
Last time I tried to download it, it hasn't been updated in a while, and it's perfectly functional. It's an amazing piece of software, but just because it's been a long time, the Android store, like their automatic security review or whatever, is like, I don't know if somebody's been paying attention. It's what if it has a security risk and it won't let you download it. So I don't know if the developer can just be like, if there's a box they can check to tell Google that it's still good. But I think, yeah, I had a hard time with it. I think the first languages, they have one also that works.
Oh, okay.
But
yeah. Kahwaak we kashuk at iukhaletu tlingit. Kahwaak. Oh, we should do here. We'll do that. Klitza.
I found it interesting how the breathe out was kuchte, like it's returning there.
Mm-hmm. Return the breath.
Yeah.
Let's see what I'll do. Oops. Okay. I'm trying to make a little Google Doc so we can do one of those typing things that we did the other day. Okay. Then I gotta remember what I just said. Oh, now I remember. Okay, I'm gonna put a link in the chat. I'm gonna choose for the link to the First Voices keyboard. Okay, so this is a Google document that you should be able to type into. I don't want that stuff there, okay. I would like folks to give a shot and write down and get what I just said. Ḳaakligéi, Shukát ʻagyeeyí, Lingi. Ḳaakligéi. Any brave souls want to type it?
I got the last word.
Shukát was like electronic things.
What we're just doing the Lingi right now, we're not translating. Ḳaakligéi, Shukát ʻagyeeyí, Lingi. Heltus tu tanuch, helwudus tu tanuch, helwudus tu lama. Neilde Christi lama. Orax. Ḳaakligéi, Shukát ʻagyeeyí, Lingi. Ḳaakligéi, Shukát ʻagyeeyí, Lingi. What's right, chat? Chat kakwatu. Okay. Ḳaakligéi, Shukát ʻagyeeyí, Lingi. Anybody wants to try the cake version underneath it? Ḳaakligéi, Shukát ʻagyeeyí, Lingi. Ḳaakligéi, Shukát ʻagyeeyí, Lingi. Ḳaakligéi. Okay. Okay. So let's see. There we go. Put like a little underline on. This is okay. Yeah. Underlines are hard to do on this thing. Ḳaakligéi. If we looked at this one down below, I would say one letter is maybe missing. Ḳaakligéi. Just to exaggerate. There we go. Ḳaakligéi. Oh, no. No apostrophe. Add that A. Put the underline K back. Okay, we've got kashuk and kashik. Ḳaakligéi is low tone. It's a perfective, and the command form is kuna'aq. So that tells us the stem likes to be long and low in the perfective, which we'll get to. Shukát, that looks good. Shukát. Is its own word. Ḥwasatiwu or ḥwasatuwu. Okay. Give it a little underline. Okay. And then tlingit. Okay, now translate. what are we gonna call here? Here's a potential name. I'll write a potential name here. Yes. Okay, that's maybe a name. Okay. Shukát Ḳu.oo Yagyeeyí. How do we translate that?
I tried.
Shukát Ḳu.oo Yagyeeyí.
Teach Tlingit with electronics. Teach electronic Tlingit.
And I guess we could call it Yesha Yakuske.
Oh, okay, I see.
ChatGPT again?
It was Meta AI, but I think Yesha Yakuske could be fake intelligence, fake wisdom. I don't know. Artificial intelligence, I guess is what it's called. It was interesting. I kind of stopped after a while, but I was like, okay, so I pushed something and then it got me to like the AI thing. And it's like, you can ask me anything. I said, do you know Tlingit? It's like, no, teach me. It was an interesting conversation. So
I prefer.
ChatGPT in you ʼatudli.átk adot Tlingit you ʼatángi. Neilde Ḥon a Ḥawinig ChatGPT away. It couldn't learn from the sample. Like like it was like saying has I guess do I can't. I'm having a hard time figuring out how to say it. It needed more than I could. Than it was. Yeah. Than I was. Yeah.
okay.
From my experience, it seemed to take things that'd be like really easy to find on Google, like words that you see everywhere, like heat and stuff like that, and then just assume that these mean these common phrases,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if we can just feed it some books or something. Like I don't know. It was interesting.
I mean,
Yeah,
you
what
have to
more?
think that the amount of Tlingit that it has access to is like a drop in the bucket compared to the amount of English it has access to.
Yeah, I did try something else. Like I was trying to make study cards for this class, which I'll pick back up, and maybe they'll be ready by next week to talk about all these little particles that we're sort of going through right now, so that you folks can have study cards and activities. And it was like,
Quizlet has some good stuff for study cards.
really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and this one I was using, what's that one? There's a few different ones.
Quizlet?
Yeah, that's it. I think so. And it was like, now I have AI. And so I fed it like a chapter. And it was interesting. It summarized the chapter in kind of interesting ways. So we'll see. Okay, anything you folks been thinking about? Anything else? I don't know if I answered the question or just went on a big tangent.
I decided to
Sorry.
I decided to read some short stories from the short story book, but did not get very far.
I think we'll work on maybe one of those for we'll talk on Wednesday about final and midterm, because it's getting to be that time. I do think translating one of those would be a fun exercise.
They're pretty short, so.
They are. And complicated, but short.
Chatsa. Okay. I was reading The Woman Who Married a Bear, Tom Peters. So there's this phrase, it comes up twice, wa ti ʼsakushege yichata. And the translation is, I wonder why. Wa ti ʼsakushege. That means I wonder why. Okay, so I can't figure out what the verb is, whether this is an idiomatic expression or what's going on.
What line is that on?
It's early in the book. Let me see.
You say wasakshe.
Okay, here it is. Page 170. Tom Peters, Woman Who Married the Bear.
Mm-hmm.
Line 69 and line 75.
That one?
Yep.
So then if we go here and we say, I wonder why he's saying this to me. So let me...
Yeah, when I was looking at this over the summer, I was very confused by teach.
Mm-hmm.
This is spelled differently in 2 sentences.
Oh, is it? Teach. There's a... Oh, teach. Yeah. We can get to both of those. Teach sa. Okay.
Because there's a verb for wonder, and this ain't it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a really good one. Okay, so let's take a look at what we got here. Oops. Okay, so here's our phrase. So if we just sort of like get ourselves to where, do we understand every single thing except for this?
More or less, yeah.
Okay.
Not on my end.
Okay, so we have wa, and what does wa generally do?
How?
Yeah, so wa
Wasa is how.
sa equals a how. Usually a question, it could be a statement. What about she?
Maybe.
Okay, and ge?
Isn't that also perhaps?
Not really.
Is it?
Question
Interrogative.
mark?
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
question.
Yes, it means yes, no question.
Okay.
Always yes, no question. And then we get to there's one verb here, I think.
Mhm.
Yechatayacha.
They said.
Said to me.
People say to me.
They are saying it to me. They are saying it to me, right? So somebody is saying something to you. You'd have dayaduqa if it was like people are saying to me.
Mm.
So this gets us to everything except for here. And oops, I did forget this. So one thing that I do think we have is a pretty good hint, which is spelled 2 different ways. So I think it was this class we're leaving and we're talking about verbal nouns. So here's yati, here's siti, here's kudzati, here's, I'll put it over here, kuwati. Okay, so yati is a verb. And these, whenever we take verbs out of context, like it's a little tricky, but generally what do these sort of mean?
Be.
Is.
Come.
Whether it be
Be
one of.
Be born.
This one would probably be to exist. Okay. So each of these have a noun form. And now, like, changing a verb into a noun hasn't been studied enough. But this one will reveal a pattern that's consistent with all of these because they have the same verb root. Does anybody know the noun form of any of these?
Yagyeeyí, Ḳu'atiyi, Sitiyi, Kuzatiyi.
That's more like the relational form, like for it to be a certain way. So like when you say being, or the weather, or life.
Kuti.
Which one is that?
Weather.
This reveals the pattern. And the pattern will be this. Minus I classifier, short high stem. So what would this one be?
T.
Site. Sate.
Kusti.
So these, so this is being, this is weather, this is being a thing, and this is life. Okay, so like all of these have a noun form. And all of them in their noun form will follow the rules that we might have learned about how possession works in Tlingit, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to add this relational suffix on here, ye. But because this word ends in a short high vowel, it gets one of these exceptions. The exception is, well, this has to now go long and low. And when that goes long and low, this goes short and high. So just like we say ha pusti, it follows all those rules. Like these are highly predictable rules about adding suffixes to nouns. So if you took ti and you ran it through the same thing, whoops, what am I trying to get? You'd get ti plus ye, but then it's got to go through this change, ti to ye, and then you would end up with ti ye, which is what I think you have right here somehow, and with a ch. So I would say this is, how would this work though? How could it be that this is saying that to me? Something like that. I don't know. Because if we come back to the context in the story, so we say, Aqawe we'an wu'ati aye atayaka. Kishke ishkinjik tutan. Kishka khut kititzik. Ahe. Dawaneski he. Watij saksheke hatayaka. Kushetu anakwani we shawat. Du ish du tla kushe. Watij sakshe. Wege hatayaka. Ye awa adayi tuwati. Aqach a Yesu tutan. Wekit aqawe yokuya kheti atawe. Dakawe yish. Dach at nakatai you nail hoots. So when we go through, and then at dawn, don't look among the people. But then at one point was it, I wonder why he's saying this to me. She thought, weren't they the women's people, weren't they her father, her mother? I wonder why he's saying this to me, she thought. And so I guess, how could it be that he would say this to me? Where the being, I think, is causing this to be said. That's my estimation on it. It's very complicated.
So the CH is making it into a subject?
Yes. And you'll see this in other cases, like you do have ta, which is a verb root. So some of them, the verb root is also a noun, right? And so that's the case here. But you could say ʻatudli.átk. And what does that refer to? Or what is that saying literally, I guess?
Sleep killed me.
Sleep killed me. And that means like just fell out, totally fell out, fell asleep. You know, and like English does like similar things, I guess, when they say they're dead asleep, right? And and so you get a similar thing here. But this you can have, I think, verbs changing to nouns and then taking on noun type suffixes like a ch.
So what makes it a noun here is the ch.
It's the t. Because I don't know all the rules of making verbs into nouns, but the best summary I heard was when you look at it, you think that can't be a verb because it can't work like that.
Yeah, I was going to ask about earlier in the story when it says "gande wugudi" to describe a bear scat. Would that be a verbal noun?
Yes. So gone. The gone is a ton of. So you've got gone, gun, gone, and you've got gun. I think of gun and gun. So I think you have outside. You have smoke hole, or what's it called? Fontanelle. Firewood, campfire. But like in terms of like how these things all work, they might be closely related sort of concepts. But then from here you take this one, and over time, so you'd usually say gande qua gu. So with this vowel staying long, this usually is translated as I am going to go outside. But when you say gande kwagut, that becomes I am going to poop. Okay? And so the vowel length really matters here, right? And so from here, you get gande nagut, I guess. So this is poop. And so Tlingit has also a couple different ways of talking about these types of things. I think we've gone over this before. But all of these are different ways to say the same thing. And I guess if you ask me, these are your English equivalents, right? And so sometimes you use different words to talk about different things, right? It kind of depends on context, cultural context, social context, age of the people you're talking to, and a variety of different situations. And so, yeah, so from that you have gande nagud, and then you can say do gande nagudi.
In the story it said wugudi. Would that be because it happened like a long time ago, or?
Well, you could say gande wugud. Yeah, you could say something like that. The place where they pooped. I'd have to find it in the story to see. Yeah, gande wugud. Yeah, the place where it poops. So here, the structure that you have here is a really neat one to learn in Tlingit. So you have, usually in the front of it, either a, which is a long high a, or uk, where it's short. And those are the same things. Those are interchangeable. Uk and a are interchangeable. And then you have verb, yeah. The the place where the verb happened. This is how, there's a whole bunch of, like if you look in the place name book, you'll find a whole bunch of places that are, and you might get different sort of ways to do that. So basically you'll have and then you'll have verb, yeah, or you might have verb, yeah, and those are the same things. But then this part can become anach, or you can say ade, or you could say adach. So you could change this part. And so then you'd say anach, verb, yeah, the place where the verb goes through it. Ade, the place where the verb goes towards it. Adach, the place where the verb goes away from it. Depending on the verb. But this is the place where verb. And there's a whole bunch of stuff you could do on that verb. Like, so you could say, ku, to, kit. Yeah. Everybody know that one? Yeah.
Place we picked berries.
Right, and you say shtu, ʼatudli.átk. Yeah, the place we what?
Where we studied.
So, and these aren't like formal place names. These are just saying this is where that thing happened. And you have and yeah. So the basic rule is you put or on one side, you put yeah on the other, and then there's this other, and I guess Tlingit is like, well, that's not fancy enough. We need a little bit more. So you have two options. You could say verb or verb or and whether or not you need to add this little vowel at the end. So this would be the place where we studied, but you'd say shtu, gach, tush, tu, yeah. So the place where we are going to study, this one does not have that vowel at the end. And here's the rule. When you're using this yeah thing, if there is a vowel in the classifier, put a little vowel at the end of the verb. That's the entire rule. That was a good question. Anything else?
Can you use that to say a specific place where it happened? Like the room where it happened is what I keep thinking of from Hamilton.
Yeah, it would be, so you could say, well, I guess I would say, Yagyeeyí ka. And so there is a slightly, oops, this should always stay low, sorry. There's a little bit of a different way that this could happen with, if you start getting into really like the house where this thing was, or it gets a little bit more complicated. The yeah will now become that noun. Yeah, anachya andekanya, yeah, that's a great one.
I have a question.
Oh.
Okay, from ʼatudli.átk, can you jump to ʼatudli.átk kagwantan kratsati?
Well, like how could it be that would cause this thing, like what would the situation be that causes this thing to say it? So I guess if you said, I feel like you'd have to say wa ach satiyi saukshe. But if you're trying to ask like, what clan is it that was saying this type of thing to me, I think you'd end up with a nach question.
But you can basically make sentences out of this with these other sitis, kuatis, and kudatis.
Yeah. So you could say ha nach satiyich ajidach owe. So this was saying our tribal or clan or national identity from that, and then you'd have some other thing, like if you were trying to explain to someone why we needed to call out a response when someone says something, or how come we need to take action when something particular happens. And so, so ha nach sati. So that is following the same set of rules. So we have sati, which changes to sati. And so this was something that was popping up. And so you say tlingit ha sati. We are human beings. Ha tlingit sati. Our identity as either tlingit or as human beings. And then if that identity is doing something, then you can add that ch. But that's an extra level of complication. Okay. So I thought we'd sort of go through and do a bit of pronoun review. But before we do that, we should take a look at another one of these words of the masters. I don't think we did this one yet. Can I get someone to read this for us?
I can read it.
Cheesh.
Ḳaakligéi to Shukát ʼatudli.átk Tlein ʼḲaakligéi Yagyeeyí.
Sheesh. Ḳaakligéi Shukát ʼatudli.átk a lot of big things in here. This was Ḳaakligéi, Norman James. He was Ďák'lawédi. Wonderful, wonderful speaker. What do we recognize here? Say it again. Cha. So, well, cha and tlak, these two are going to go together. Tlak.
Also a he.
Yeah,
Shukát. Forever?
Chutleich is or chatleich.
Just then? Shukát?
Chatlak just then might be chayuk. But we're close.
Just now.
I recognize ʼatudli.átk.
Yeah, ʼatudli.átk. And what is that? Well, okay, let's stick with chatlak. We got to solve chatlak.
For a long time.
That would be chak or chuchak. So chatlak is all the
Long
time.
ago.
All the time. Chatlak. So whenever you see chatlak, you usually will have a repetitive verb. So you're like chatlak you ʼatnuch, and so that you ʼatnuch. You're going to get nuch or a ch or some repetitive form. Because if it's chatlak, then it's always. So this is like Tlukwan. The name of Tlukwan it also means like eternal. It's related to this concept of tlagu, but I think that's different but related. But tluk is all the time. So here's another one that has like, it's a real fine difference between Ḳaakligéi and the ʼatudli.átk. What might these be?
Every day.
And all day.
Right? And then, then you got to have some sort of yay, jin chadnage. But then you're just really bragging it up. I work all day, every day. But maybe you shouldn't. Take a break. But you're going to have a repetitive. That's when you really set yourself up for a habitual verb or some sort of repetitive verb. Especially this. Cuck usually triggers some sort of thing. But what we'll see here is instead of repetitives, we'll have decessives. And so this in at the end means the verb would be yausitaq and would be yu. There's probably a W in there. I didn't hear it. No. Okay. So always, we did jump down. What is hastu dechhanki has? Or I guess hastu dechhanki.
Your grandchildren?
Yes. Those plural peoples is grandchildren. Okay. All right. Anything else we recognize in here? About tsu?
Shukā.
Shukā. Yeah, tsu is
Shu is end, but
again.
Shukā.
And what is shukā?
Is that at first or originally?
First.
Oh, first, not end.
First. Always, again, first. ʼatudli.átk.
Oh boy.
This seems around though.
Yes, but it's that .ut is so interesting. And so it's something that I think falls into this category of things with a pretty flexible definition. Like the way I usually use this one is I'll say ʼatudli.átk. And sometimes I'll say that to my kids.
None of your business.
Right. So that would be, whoops, I think I changed it. But also, so it can mean any one of these things. So it kind of depends on context. So if, let's say something dramatic is going on over here, and you have a kid, and the kid is just staring at the dramatic encounter because it's interesting, maybe like two people are really arguing, right? And we don't know those people. So I might say to my kids, that's not your business. In other words, like, stop paying attention to that.
Kuliana.
Yeah. And so, and it can also be like, it's not about, like, literally, it's not about you. It's not a thing about you. So when you say ʼatudli.átk, it is a thing about them, right? So their concern, their business, there's something about them. Then we get use, talking. But this gets a little complicated because we have hastu dot. This dot here is connected to this verb. So you say, we hit dot. Well, let's go find this verb. I want to show you some examples of this verb. So it's a complicated concept, but it's also, I think, culturally a very important concept. So I want us to take a look at it. So we're going to go look for hawk. Scroll down, the T's. And this is our verb. So we do have dot. And so in this case, you'd say, do dot khat yausatak. I am taking care of them. Or if you say, we hit dot khat yausatak. I'm taking care of the house. Idat khat yausatak. I'm taking care of you. This means to tend to what, like to watch over, to serve, to care for. And so we also have this, so you have like Yao was talking. So when we go back to this statement, it was always the first thing. They used to take care of them. So we have another decessive form, like it used to happen, but not anymore. Do we recognize this verb?
Is it to look at?
Well, that would be ʼatudli.átk. So you'd say you'd say ʼawulqeinen would be the decessive form of that. So this one would be use ʼatk. And this is a contraction of hus. So you could say you hus ʼatk. Which is like, yeah, it's a plural form of you ayatunk. The like single person is talking. You has atk. They are conversing. Chaklak ada yus atkin. They used to talk about it. So this is the ada part here. Hastu dechanki hastu yaak. This place that is reserved for their grandchildren. So when he was talking about this, he was saying like the Tlingit language allows you to look way out into the future. And he would say, because they were always talking about this, what things would be like for their grandchildren and how they would take care of them. And so it was part of a bigger, complicated conversation. He was a highly, highly intelligent Tlingit speaker. Any thoughts? Okay. So with that, let's talk about pronouns. So what are independent pronouns in Tlingit?
Khat.
Yes, but explain it. If I said, hey, I heard you guys are talking about independent pronouns, what is that?
They aren't like fitted into anything. They have no dashed line.
They are not connected to anything logically. So they're not, nothing depends on them as far as grammar goes. So they're usually like, yeah. So here's like khat for me. So I might say, if I knock on the door, you say, Adusawe. Who is that? Say khataya. Khone. I am me. Khone. It's not used a whole lot in Tlingit. You could say yadu khat, weiduhu, gusu wa'eh. So it has to be in a verbless phrase. It cannot be directly attached to a verb. It doesn't show any sort of relationship. You can use it to sort of show that you're switching subjects. For example, someone says, Masa iyati. You might say, ʼatudli.átk wa'equa or wa'ede. So that is the wa'eh and you. And that's pushing the question back to you, asking you the same question you asked me. So all of these will have a high tone, and they are the only pronouns that have a high tone. So there it is, khat with a high tone. And how would I say us in this context?
Huh.
Like if I say, we are here, yadu,
Hat.
you can't say yadu ha.
Hat. Hot.
Not hot. Yadu.
Wuhan.
Wuhan.
Wuhan. Not very used. Not used that often, right? You might say Wuhan. Like, I guess if you're making some sort of speech, so I might say, gonna cheese to cut Wuhan. There's a preview of something that's coming. Ya hatu Yagyeeyí to cut Wuhan adusa Shukát Ḳu.oo Yagyeeyí. We feel really good, those of us who are Shukát Ḳu.oo. If I'm speaking on behalf of the group, right? So Chat and Wuhan. See the high tone right there? Okay. What about singular you? Gusu.
Wa'eh.
Yeah. Wa'eh. Right? See the high tone? Wa'eh. What about y'all?
Yuhan.
One.
Yuhan. Right? Okay. A singular them. He, she, them. Gusu.
Huh.
Huh. Right. And so this, I mean, you could also have these. You could say Chach, Uhanch, Wa'ech, Yuhanch, Hooch. Like you could put that little CH on there. Or you might say Chataya, Uhanaya, Wa'eh, Wa'eh, Owe, Yuhan, Owe. Right? So they're not used that often. Hu, Owe. What about it? A singular it, a non-human thing. And if your dog is a huh, that's totally fine. Your cat, whatever, that's your call. My guinea pig ain't no hood though. My kid's guinea pig. Yes, with a high tone. Not you. Well, this one is actually used a lot. We put a bunch of different suffixes on this one. This is how you get anach, ade, ach, at. There's a whole bunch of things you get from this one, but it's usually used just with the suffix. Or it's used with a suffix. But as far as just saying you might say, that's the thing, I guess. You might say, awe, adatawe yuch ʼatudli.átk. That is the thing we used to talk about. I guess you could say that. Them all, plural. It's got to have a high tone.
Hus.
Hus, right? Hus away. Gusu hus. Where are they all? Right? You could say all of that. Where do hus? There they are. That group of them. What about someone?
Ush.
Ka.
Yes. So ush is an object pronoun. It has to be linked to a verb. Ka. So this is the one thing that does cause some gender confusion in Tlingit. So we have these genderless pronouns, but then this one is a homonym for ka, which is a man or male. And what about something? I would say this is the most common of all of them, of these pronouns.
At.
At. Yeah.
So this is the at that's in idat at, shukach ati, dakrewedi. It's in a whole bunch of things, right? And so it's a thing. These are all of your independent pronouns. They're not used that much, but it's good to know them and it's good to just review them. Uhanoe, right? It's us. This is, I would say, ut is pretty common, and yuhan is pretty common, especially if you're doing public speaking. To cut yuhan, right? That's used a lot, right? Any questions about these?
Would, I don't understand what the difference between these independent pronouns are and the ones that are not connected to the verb as well. Like the hat, ha, ye, like
Yes, and so those ones are object pronouns, and which this is what the whole intention of this is to get us to object pronouns, to say like now this will become a low tone chat, ha, yi, zero, sometimes this one, you don't differentiate between human and non-human with object pronouns. And then ka or k, and then ut. And so they all go low tone, and then a lot of them change. And so, go ahead.
When would you use these ones instead of those ones? I guess.
Usually just to sort of specify who you're talking to or do a subject switch. Like let's say we're at a Tlingit restaurant and I'm ordering all of the food for everybody. Ya nadak uhanoe hatuwasagu ya pepperoni haskoa yusitinge we nadak hasoe hastutuwasagu, right? So just to sort of differentiate between sets of groups of people, or, you know, for example, if we go to a coffee shop and I knew what you wanted, I'm very bossy, I guess, today. And I'd say, kahwe achtuasagu, hukoa, di, or chayu, right? So usually to signify a subject switch, or to say gusu, yadu, wedu, chataya, it's me. Or gusu wa'eh, yadu chat. So those ones, so like that, and that's where it gets a little confusing, because if you say, where are you? I am here. Those are verbs in English, and they are not verbs in Tlingit. So you say gusu wa'eh, that's not a verb. But if you say yadu chat, that's not a verb either. Does that make sense? Okay, and so we're going to look at these in sets though. So we're just trying to sort of make sure we review these sets. We know that they exist. These ones are the least used of the pronouns. At pops up all over the place, but it's usually part of a noun. So now we get into our relational pronouns. So now we're switching from me, you, them to my, our, your, y'all's, their, its, them, all's, someone, somethings. So these ones are used with kinship, and they are used with all directional terms. So this is where Tlingit also is different from English. So you say, around me, that's how you'd say it in English. But if you spoke English the same way you spoke Tlingit, you'd say my around, my under, my over. That is exactly how you put those together in Tlingit Tundatani. So you'd say, achka, on me. Achka siudaku satan. It was raining on me. Haka tsu hakakewa'a. The daylight broke on us again. Okay, so how would I say my? Ach. These are all low tone. We are done with any high tones in any of these pronouns. None of them will have high tones. You also cannot have high tones in a verb prefix. You cannot. Okay. Our. Your.
Me.
Y'all's, uses.
Ye.
Ye. A singular there, his or her, or there.
Do.
It's.
Also, duh.
Well, that would be no, because it's non-human.
Ut.
A low tone for we know what the thing is. It's the mouse's cheese or whatever the thing is, right? If your dog or cat is a duh, or your pet snake or tarantula, that's fine, whatever. But usually, like if you saw like you know, I've heard people when they talk about like a moose, they might say duh all the time. But especially if it's a non-living thing, it would always be So atayi underneath it. Okay. Them alls is the plural, third person.
Us.
Stu.
Hastu.
Hastu. Right? Someone's, a person's.
Ka.
Ka, right? A low tone. So sometimes when we're asked to say, how do you say it like Happy Mother's Day? I would say Shukát Ḳu.oo Yagyeeyí. So that doesn't mean, it just means happy person's Mother's Day. And some things. At, a low tone at. So these ones, so again, coming back through, we had khat, uhan, wa yuhan, hu, has, ka, at. Now they have all shifted. Ach, ha, yi, du, hastu, ka, and at. Now there are some verbs that use indirect objects, which means like, so you say, ʼatudli.átk, ḥatudli.átk, ʼitudli.átk, yitudli.átk. So once you realize what sort of pronoun you have, you can practice going through this list and changing them. And that does start to unlock an awful lot of things, right? Hastutuwasagu, they like it, they want it. Any questions about these? Any of the verbs that have eat or in or those types of things will use these. So you'd say, ʻa'i ʻawllatu, they taught it to me. Ha'ina kawanik, they told it to us. Yi'it chadishi, yi'it chadishi, let me help you all. So now, this gets us to the object pronouns. So because we have object pronouns, we've added a couple others. I think there's one on here that, there's even one more we'll deal with later. So these ones do change. They are, some of them, they're actually in the same form as the last list. These will all be different from the first list, although some of them, the tone just goes low. That's the only change. And then as we go through, we're going to talk about, or after we look at the list, we'll talk about how some of them are different. So some of the things when we get to object pronouns in Tlingit, these are the ones that the verb happens to, right? So they love me, they love you, they love them, right? So the one who is usually the recipient of the verb. But what's also interesting with Tlingit is an awful lot of state verbs will use object pronouns. So you are technically saying, me good, us good, you all good, them good, which sounds an awful lot like a Hollywood Native American of like the bad era of film, like me good Indian, right? And so, but just in terms of word order and how Tlingit works, that's interesting, right? So, what is the object pronoun for me?
Chat.
Chat. Yeah, so it's low. So that is always the object pronoun for me. They said it to me, right? They punched me in the face. So like all these things, you know, they love me. Like all these things that might be happening, right? So that khat is going to be, it's happening to me. What about to us? Ha, right? So ye house, ye ha ha. That's how they said it to us, or they said that to us, right? Hasachan, they love us. Hayake, we're good. What about you?
E.
ʼyaʻawa. And so same thing. So you could say ʼyeʻeyaʻsaqa. I said it to you. And so these are all for the object pronouns. Ishitsin, you are strong. What about y'all?
E.
Ye, yeʻeyaʻsaqa. They said it to you. Right? Yichsachan, love you all. Through ye yikwasatin, I will see you all again. A singular them.
No. Or
Yes. So the way that we want to think about this one is the single third person is an unmarked pronoun, which is really kind of wild. Like people want to throw de in there or something, right? But if you say ich sechan, I love you. Yich sechan, I love you all. Chasechan, I love them. So that is an unmarked pronoun, and it is by default unmarked. Like Tlingit does not have to have anything there to say them, him, or her. But if you have a third person object and a third person subject, it has to switch to a. So you'd say chasechan, tisechan, isechan, yisechan, asechan. So now that third person has switched over to a. It has to happen. And for them all,
us.
so we get hus plus this. The thing to remember with hus is it always comes before chat, ha, I, yi. Any of those things. So you'd say hus, chat, sechan. They all love me. Hus, ha, sechan. They all love us. Hus, isachan. They all love you. Hus yi sechan. They all love you all. So that hus is outside of where those other object pronouns are. It's not a true object pronoun. It pluralizes from the outside. How about someone or people?
Sir.
It's like a short one though.
It's k or ka. And the way I would recommend thinking of this one is it's k, unless the verb has a k on it, or there's some variation. Like you could say yekuwati, and you could be saying that's how people are. Because kuwati, because kuwati is also weather, I would always say yekayati. That's how people are. But for the other ones, like I said, I love people. But then I'd probably say some of them. But I'd say all. Okay. Something. Right? So this is, some of these, it does change the meaning of the verb a little bit. Right? And so we'll look at some examples of that. For example, you say, chacha, I'm eating it. You say, ʼatchacha, I'm eating something. So now the focus is just on the act of eating. There are other ones where it changes quite a bit, right? So you want to be careful about some things like ʼatdana, because ʼatdana literally means they're drinking something, but it's usually will be interpreted as they're drinking alcohol. So, what about to each other?
Wooch.
Wooch or whoosh, either one. So usually whoosh. The next word is starting with a consonant, and then wooch. The next word is starting with a vowel. Whoosh tin, whooch in. It's not a hard and fast rule, but that's usually how that works. And then what about to the south?
Sh or chush.
Tush, or just sh. We'll look at examples of those last two later because they do change the verb a little bit. But what I want us to do is just to start sort of seeing these things in use. So here's a verb. I want us to get used to looking at these things and thinking blue, object, purple, classifier, brown, that's the root or the stem, right? And so when we look at this, we'll say, oh, there's an object pronoun right there. This is a zero classifier. What we'll start figuring out is it's a state verb. That means there is an imperfective and it will be plus I. What does that mean? To say it is that way, you'll say Yagyeeyí, right? So there's our baseline verb. So if we start changing this object pronoun, just to practice, it's a mechanical process, but we're going to go through a few different verbs and just change these object pronouns going me, you, them, us, y'all, them all, and then people. Those are our main forms we're going to practice here. So how would I say I'm good?
ʻatudli.átk.
Ḥatyak'e. Everybody say Ḥatyak'e.
Okay.
Ḥatyak'e.
ʻatudli.átk.
And how about you're good?
Yagyeeyí.
Okay.
Iyak'e.
Yake.
Iyak'e.
Yake.
Yagyeeyí.
Okay.
So we're going to backtrack here for a second. So looking at these, some of them have a hyphen after it. What that means is you must write that as part of the verb itself. So when you see iyak'e, that is a single word. Iyak'e is two words. So that's what this is showing you. This would be 2, 2, 1, 2, 1. Well, this would be 2 because it's got hus in front of it. This would be 1. This would be 2. 2. And then we're not going to worry about those last two. The reason for that is because these ones that have the hyphen will affect the contraction differently than these ones that don't. For example, we're going to go through all these things. We're going to say ḥatyak'e, ha'yak'e, iyak'e, yiyak'e, yak'e, hasyak'e, ḳaayak'e. Okay, so that's how all of those would sound. If I used a different verb, which would be the antonym of that, kesh'ushke, kesh'chat'ushke, kesh'ha'ushke, kesh'ishke, kesh'yi'ushke, kesh'yi'ushke, kesh'ushke, kesh'ushke, kesh'ka'ushke. So this one blends right with that ishke, yi'ushke, ha'ushke. So just keep that in mind as you sort of keep digesting and internalizing this list of pronouns. It will work that way. They are good. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Yagyeeyí.
Can you do plus cut ushke again and
Yes.
explain how you how the different? I don't understand hus squiggle a minus. What goes on there with this one?
Okay. So let's so our verb here is ushke, right? So we have klesh ushke. This is our verb. And this is right where the object pronoun is, right there, right? And so it's interesting learning Tlingit because we sort of like create these abstract ways to look at it so that we can help understand what kinds of things will change. then the idea is hopefully we're naturalizing that by continuing to use it and talk with each other and like just think about, like I say chet has all the time, and I stop myself when I switch them around. So if we look at these ones, so looking at this verb klesh ushke, to be, it's a good, I guess, Halloween verb, right? It means like to be evil or to be bad. So just going through, like in replacing these, you'd say klesh chet ushke. This is written like this because it's saying it's its own word. It always is its own word. It pops up. It's not a prefix thing. It's a preverb thing, which is interesting because the object pronouns will be in one or the other. They're in the in-between zone. This one will be its own word because there's no hyphen. Kesh ha ushke. This one, there is a hyphen. So it takes part of this contraction. I ushke, it's ishke. Kesh ishke. So we write this one with this hyphen because we say it cannot be separate from the verb. It has to be attached because it will do different things than these other ones will. And this is our example right here. Kesh yi ushke. So yi ends with a vowel, so it will cause contraction. Like I'll say yuchsatin, right? We'll look at a different verb. So it will say chetbusatin. There's no extra contraction there. But you'd say hausatin, or you'd say hamsatin, because that ends with a vowel. And then I'd say eusatin or imsatin, right? Because that one is attached. Same, like in this one too, I could take that and change these to ye. And I'll say ausatin or umsatin, has ausatin, has umsatin. Husatin or kumsatin, kumsatin. At usatin. We won't do the other ones. Okay, so now we could say klesh ushke, klesh has ushke, and klesh ka ushke. And I wouldn't say klesh kushke because I would think of that as bad weather. Technically, you could say that as people are bad, but I would say klesh ka ushke instead. That's quite.
Where's the A in Seth Has Ushka?
There's no A because there's no subject in that verb. There has to be a third person subject. That's when you switch to that. So you do have it over here on ausatin, but that's why it's ausatin or umsatin, because they saw them. If you have a they and them in that same verb, then that's when you get the But otherwise, the third person object is always unmarked.
Okay.
So I would think of it as there's nothing there, you don't need anything for it. It takes a while to get used to, right? Because if we use English that way, you'd say, I love you, I love y'all, I love, and you just stop. And everyone would be like, you love what? I'm like, oh, them, I said it, right? And so Tlingit does not need to mark third, and it never marks a third person subject. That does take a while to get used to, right? I said it, you said it, said it. Okay. Okay. Thoughts or questions? 7 o'clock, we're going to do a hard stop. So the idea going through this stuff is like to get these lists and have you sort of like have them in your pockets. At one time I made like a little business card that had all the pronouns on there but it was so tiny. It was convenient, but I think you needed like a monocle or a jeweler's glass to like really get to use it. But these are really great to just internalize, right? And that's the idea with these exercises. We're just going to cycle through them. Wednesday, we will move back into our story that we've been looking at. We'll look at the smaller version of it. I think the books just arrived, which is exciting. So there's 3 of these books that are out already. So we got to figure out how to. The big mystery, like I could figure out an object pronoun, I could figure out a verb mode and Tlingit. I can't figure out how to get books in the hands of the people, but we'll figure it out. ʻatulli, ʼatudli.átk. Nobody knows how, but we'll get them to you. Okay. Anything else?
I feel like I've got the pronoun list in Quizlet. If anyone's interested, I can go back and add in the less common ones, like, the fourth person and the non-human and all that stuff. I think they've even got like a matching game on there.
Oh, yeah, okay.
See if somebody can beat my time.
Ooh.
And bonus tip, it looks like everything we went over today is in chapter 7A of the beginning workbook.
Yeah, we're just running through those verbs with like, and so we have the idea with beginning Tlingit is like here's a bunch of verbs and here's like, but really you're just sort of, I think at that point often just sort of memorizing those. So you say, oh, Ḥakyakei, Yagyeeyí, Yagyeeyí, and usually only do 1, 2, 3. So now we're adding plurals, and we're also like asking you to say it on your own, just looking at the verb. And so, yeah, you can study that chapter. That's a good place to look. Keep reading and listening to the story. And yeah, the Tlingit reference guide, I see you've got that. That usually focuses on subject pronouns, which we will be getting to. We did objects. We are going to talk about the thematic prefixes and show you a bunch of examples of how that works, so we can get to the next thing over, which is, well, we'll go one at a time. We're going to do the conjugation one after that, which is going to get us into a big conversation about verb modes. But I want to unlock all of that stuff for us. And so that's the whole goal. Let's talk about it, show you a whole bunch of examples, and then just start getting you to put these things together so that you can look them up. But I want you to be able to do it yourself. So we'll get there. Okay.
And if we could re-upload the dictionary, that would be wonderful.
Okay, I'll check the links on that tonight, and we'll be working on fixing it.
Yeah, we're getting a 404.
Ooh. I try to get them at UAS because at UAS, when you get a 404, it says whale, like the animal. Whale, that was embarrassing. And I said, they need to do one that has Tlingit as well. It says, yai, don't know what's going on here. I haven't succeeded yet.
I saw one that said yai.
Did it?
Yeah, but I think it was still kind of with English, like the yai, this is, or something.
Okay, so
Yeah,
maybe
so
my
it
joke,
was- I
maybe my
was
joke
like-
made it through. Okay. I can
just thought
sleep
they
now.
could improve on what was clearly already perfect.
It took me a second to switch. I was like, oh, I'm good. That's cool.
Okay.
Oh, but I had a question. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I lost my link to the audio and the text somehow.
It's on our class page.
Okay, I just couldn't find it then. I will find it.
Here, I'll show you. Hold on. So here's our class page, Learning Tlingit, Advanced Tlingit. You do have to scroll down a bit, but we get into our classes, and then it's that little thing right there.
Oh, okay. I didn't.
I guess it's because I didn't I'll try and add some, I get a little confused on how to add the captions here so that you can see it, because it is just this little red
arrow
box.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a good point. Okay. I'll try and add something to it.
Kunle, I have a request for verbs moving forward. Could we get just kind of some common stems with each classifier so I can kind of start playing with them? Like I know ha for 0, but just kind of some basic ones that we might actually be able to use, and I can play with objects and subjects and pretend like I know more than I probably actually do.
Yes, yeah, we're working, so we're going to get objects, and then we're going to talk about conjugation, but we're not going to like try and master conjugate. We're just going to say, look at all this. This is the magic. This is where all of the magic happens. But on the outside of the verb, on the left side, the first thing is the object. Right before the classifier is the subject. Then you have the classifier itself. So then we need to start changing both of those things. And then we also need to start changing the conjugation stuff. And then we'll have almost everything. But yeah, I'll give you some. We'll start with the love verb because it's the easiest verb to manipulate in terms of changing the objects and the subjects at the same time.
Yeah, just when we get to the classifiers, it would be good. I started a list last year, and so far my list has, I think, one verb on it. So if I could kind of build that out a little bit, that'd be great.
Okay, will do.
But sheesh.
Yewushkach tustin Johan Yekechawe.
Ah, it was Tustin.
Oh,
Finish Ziagen.
okay.